everyone, and welcome back. Today's video is a little bit different. We're going to be talking a bit more personal and vulnerable. I want to tell you more about my story. So, how I went from being a professional dancer, a classically trained ballet dancer, and why I transitioned into this world of yoga, health, and wellness. So really, why did I become a yoga teacher and how? So just to start off, my name is Alana, and I was born and raised in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So like most dancers, I started dancing from a really young age. I was about 3 years old when I started, and I was doing all kinds of dance like ballet, tap, jazz, acrobatics, and I absolutely loved it. To me, ballet was just this fantasy world where you can walk into a studio and transform yourself. You can be a fairy, you can be a princess, a queen, a snowflake. To me, it just felt like I was able to create something within myself. And I stayed dancing from 3 years old to about 14 years old. And that's that age when you start to decide if you want to go to a higher level and to do it a bit more professionally. So my mom had sent me to do an audition for the biggest company in our area, which was Canada's National Ballet School. And I auditioned. I didn't really think too much of it. I was so young, and I got in. So once I got in, that's kind of when my world just opened up, because everything just became so much more serious. And this love that I had for ballet, which was of course always still there, it had to be really clouded by the politics as well as the emotions that are involved, the work it takes, and kind of like the society of ballet itself. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I was in this professional ballet school and working just my butt off. You know, at 14 years old, I was in grade 8. My every thought was around ballet. I was eating correctly, making sure I was being very cautious about my weight. I was working after hours at home, stretching my feet, doing the splits. I was watching videos on my off time. I was watching all of the YouTube tips on how to gain flexibility, how to get the perfect ballerina foot, everything. I was 100% obsessed, as most ballet dancers are. So it's not very abnormal, but at the same time, it's not very healthy at such a young age to be so laser focused on something, because the older I got, the more I started to see that I was really missing out on the big picture of my childhood. So, you know, I definitely was not going to high school, going to parties, focusing on boys. I was focusing on all the opposite. I was focusing on myself. The biggest would be body weight. You become so obsessed with being this perfect image. And it's not very realistic at 14 years old to be thinking about, are my boobs too big? Is my butt too big? How can I be tall enough? How can I be skinny enough? It's really all-consuming. So, and none of that takes away from the beauty and the grace and the art of the ballet world either. But these were just some things that I had to go through. So coming out of this ballet school, I was rejected the next year. So I was introduced into this world, immediately rejected, and then I had to move on and find another way that I could train at such a high level to stay on this path to be a professional dancer. So I was doing private coaching, finding the best teachers that I could, and just training my body like a machine. So from 14 throughout all of high school until about 18, 19, that's what I did. I was just powerhousing, doing as many hours as I could of ballet as possible. And then once you turn 18, that's when you start auditioning for ballet companies and you start to really get a job. So at 18 years old, I went to America and I was accepted into Charlotte Ballet, which till this day will remain one of the greatest experiences of my life. It's where I met most of my dearest friends, and it's where the ballet world no longer became just a hobby or something that I did as out of passion. It became also my job. So morning till night, I was not only just thinking about it, but I was really doing it as my profession. So the stakes got even higher. And as much as I really loved it, you know, there's nothing more magical than doing Nutcracker every Christmas and working really hard and feeling an audience being touched by something that you've given to them. There was so much behind it that was still kind of making me suffer on the inside, and I was so in love with this art form that I wasn't even realizing it. And it's good to talk about because it's definitely it's an art form that's not depicted accurately in any type of media, so it's hard for dancers to really feel understood. So I hope telling my story, it just kind of gives you, if you have danced or you know of dancers, it just gives a bit more insight into this world. The reason why I loved doing ballet as a career was because I really felt that I was making a difference. Now, I was still so young. I felt that giving all that I have been taught after all those years of training, and it's really so many years because we start so young, I felt that I was just giving it all back to the audience every night. And that sense of pleasure and joy and emotion that the audience felt, to me, was the most special thing in the world. I wanted to make people feel something. So I wanted to give them a human experience, something that they watch on a stage and then they just feel good inside, or maybe they cry, but at least they're experiencing something human. And that's how we can all connect. So that's something I loved so much. And the older I got, the more I was realizing that even though I was giving all I could in ballet, there was still something missing. That feeling was something that was staying with me, but I just kept pushing it to the side because I had been working on this one goal my whole life. So I really couldn't accept any other possibility in my mind. It was just, I'm a dancer and that's it. That's all I know how to do. That's all I love to do. I'm going to succeed because if you work hard enough, you're going to succeed. And as beautiful as it is to have passion and a work ethic, it's also very hard if at some point you can't do the thing that you love and life takes you in a different direction. So life took me in a different direction after 2 years in this company. I received a contract, but I couldn't get my visa to stay. So I took my chances and I went all the way across the world to Europe. And that's when I started doing auditions in all these European countries. I was traveling. I was at such a beautiful age to travel because I just had nothing to lose. I had no home. I had no pets. I could just go country to country, learn, explore, and experience, and find kind of like my feet for a new path. And this is when I started to fall in love with life. I felt that there were so many things I've never experienced before. I was so sheltered as a dancer, and I was only ever surrounded by dancers that I never actually got to have a boyfriend or go to parties or really just be a kid. I was just so determined and I was so mature for my age that when I went to Europe, I felt so free. And that's when I just started going to different countries saying, I don't even care where I end up. I just want to live life and experience life to the fullest. And that's when I got a job in a cabaret company in France. And my whole world changed because not only was I going from classical ballet, which is something so specific and strict and beautiful, but I was going to something that was a bit more relaxed in its work ethic, and also slightly, even though it's beautiful, but it also has so many layers to it that are slightly less refined. So to me, I was just so excited. It was a moment for me to just get out of my shell, also to finally make some money, because as a dancer, it's very hard to get a good contract where you are making money and you have stable income. Me, I was just ready to travel and dance for the love of dancing without all the pressure that ballet brought me. So as a cabaret dancer, I was going around Europe and just taking it all in. I was really just being a kid. I was getting to know people, coming out of my comfort zone, learning new languages. To me, it was just such a beautiful transitioning moment. And that's also when all of the stuff that I had dealt with as a ballet dancer started creeping back in as I was getting away from the ballet world. So I would start to really notice that my relationship with food was really unhealthy. I would consider that only eating veggies, fruits, being vegan or vegetarian made me healthy. And based on the amount of sports that I was doing and workouts, I was really missing a lot of protein. A lot of vegan diets and raw foods disagreed with my system. I actually didn't understand what foods my body liked and what foods my body didn't. I tried to eat the way I used to eat, but I wasn't dancing the same. So my stomach was also transitioning. Even the difference between American food, Canadian food, and European food. I had so many symptoms coming up that I had never had before. And I even started getting anxiety that I never had before. Because even though I was happy to travel and experience things, the ballet world was so structured, I always just had to follow the rules and follow everyone around me. And then the moment I was out of that, I was like a little fish in such a big ocean that there was nothing to follow. There was no rules anymore. You're at an age where things are not black and white. Everything is so big and so complicated that good luck with choosing the right path. So I would get very, very anxious. I would get very self-conscious, very nervous. And it was really stuff coming from this ballet world being just so different from the real world. Now, once I was doing this new lifestyle, I started to also use yoga, where before I would use yoga as a workout, as like a cross training with ballet. Then I started to find yoga to deal with more of my anxiety and to meditate so that way I could find just a bit more balance in my body. And that's when things just kind of clicked. That's when I was finding that everything I loved in ballet, I could find in yoga. So moving your body, exploring your body, learning about your body. And then you have this beautiful connection with rhythm, with music, meditation, chanting. I just found it so familiar and so comfortable. And leaving that ballet world, I was so attracted to this feeling that I felt like I had lost. So with ballet, I also had this problem with identity, feeling like if I don't dance and if I'm not a ballerina, who am I? What am I? And when I started practicing yoga more and more, that sense of self, like who am I, became so much clearer. It was not about what I wore, how I dressed, what I did as a profession. It doesn't matter if you're flexible, non-flexible, skinny, or overweight. It really doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change your being. And yoga brought me so much more purpose to my life. My purpose wasn't to be a dancer. It wasn't to be a professional cabaret dancer either. It was really to just be myself. And that felt so good because after years and years of pushing myself to my limit, I finally had a space where it was just okay to be me, where my identity had nothing to do with anything around me. It just had to do with my energy and my soul and just everything within. So after dancing in cabaret for 4 years, almost 5 years, I was so into my yoga practice that I felt that that was the path I had to go on. So I quit my job, I started teaching yoga on the side. I did my 200-hour formation during the lockdown, during pandemic, and then I did my 300-hour formation. And now I am 500-hour certified and just so proud of this whole journey that I've been on. I can really see how that ballet world formed me into who I am today, but also kind of prevented me from being my fullest and greatest self. So going onto that new yoga path, onto that new journey, I was able to find just more meaning, more happiness, more peace within myself and within the world. So if you want any more tips or any more experiences about either the ballet world or the yoga world, if you have any questions, just feel free to comment them down below and we can start to create more conversations like this where we're sharing our human experiences. And we're using yoga to find that sense of balance. So no matter what you go through, no matter what your career is, what is happening in your life right now, use your yoga practice. Try to take it back. Go back within, find some silence, find some stillness, and just get back to source. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will be back with more yoga talks. Bye.